At what point do you know that you could possibly be a doctor? Because were there any doctors that looked like you in your sphere?
You know, it's amazing how when I look back, I look at the dearth, the paucity of African American role models in certain positions of life, including the president. I was telling my kids the other day, when I grew up, we used to read history books, and there were never black faces when you talked about presidents or vice presidents. And I said, you know, the fact that you guys, even though it's only one, but
Right.
the fact that you can see that an African American can ascend to these positions is unbelievable. We had to believe as kids just in blind faith. We had to believe what our parents said, which was you can be anything you want to be if you work hard enough and you stick to it. So, you know, I think that when I was a 9-year-old kid and I was lying on my grandfather's bed and I was reading Ebony magazine and was reading an article about the dearth of African American neurosurgeons, there weren't many, and they were saying how we need more. I made up my mind that I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but then I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And ironically, who was in that article? Ben Carson was actually in that article.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I was driven since I was a kid to become a physician because one, and this sounds very cliche, I loved my pediatrician. He was a nice guy. I felt I could talk to him. I wanted to make other kids feel as comfortable as he made me feel in helping me through my life. So that was one reason. But the other reason was because I always loved science. I'm a very curious person by nature, and I love the idea of looking at a problem biologically and trying to fix it. And so medicine was just a natural for me.
And so you go to school and obviously you do well. But how far in your mind is Harvard and Columbia and Pritzker?
You know, it's interesting. So I had no idea what Harvard was. And this is a real true story. So my brother and I were great basketball players, but we were also great academically. And which is why I tell kids these days, you got to be you got to be a double threat. You got to be great academically and athletically. Both of them work for you. But anyway, so we were getting all this recruiting mail for academics. We had taken the PSATs. And so all these colleges were sending us recruiting letters academically saying, hey, look at our school. We had literally garbage bags full. I swear to you, garbage bags.
Wow.
And we kept them in the basement of our little townhouse. My uncle, who was a fourth grade teacher, came over one day and said to my mother, what are all these bags in the basement? And she said, oh, no, those are letters that the boys have gotten from schools. He said, letters from schools? She said, yeah, they get these, like literally every day, 5 or 10 letters from schools. So we go through this. He says, let me see these bags. So he takes these bags out. There's a letter from Harvard. I had no idea what Harvard was. I had no idea. It didn't matter to me. I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to play, for St. John's or Villanova, And so he's going through and says, and he starts screaming. He's an academician. He knows you have a letter from Harvard. So fast forward, Harvard starts also recruiting me for basketball.
Wow.
They already started recruiting me academically. And so, it just, when you're a kid, ignorance sometimes really is bliss. When you don't understand how big something may be, then it can't overwhelm you. So Harvard to me was like any other school. So why can't I go to Harvard? And, I could go to any school I want to go to. My teacher said if I worked hard and did well. So to me, it was in the realm of possibility. Looking back at it now, you realize, oh my goodness, like maybe it's good I didn't know how big of a deal it was because I may have been, psychologically it would have been very intimidating.